but you need to go in there and rinse off. Okay,
Yeah.
you need, and I would stand in the.
Don't even say it.
I would stand in the rinse off in the drain area where the in between the two showers, and with my grade book and give them a hygiene grade, which probably would get me fired today.
Yeah, I would say that's. Today we're going to talk about what does program mean today, and we were kind of discussing some of this throughout the week, and I'm going to kind of follow a little bit of your lead on where we start. I have some questions about maybe some of the historical things that you're going to talk about and how it might translate today. But where do you kind of want to start today in terms of program and thoughts on program?
Well, I can talk about what I know and how I know it. If how is program, the term program, how has it progressed over the years? Okay, obviously program probably wasn't even a go word at the time of Chess McFee. Okay, it was just the football team. But obviously there was a program. I mean, you have to have a program to have success. So what does that entail? Well, as I thought about that, certainly what I could imagine or guess would be my take on what it was during that era, as far as program. I mean, obviously, I wasn't around at the time, and and it wasn't like my dad sat me down and said, "Well, this is what we did, and this is how we did it." We talked about games and whatnot, but as far as the program factor. What I've gathered from conversation with Coach McFee, Red Angelo, Ed Matey, whatever, when Chess was the coach, I would pretty much think the season was the season. Okay, I mean it was football season, and then it was basketball season, and then it was track. And Chess, I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably coached all three. He was the coach of all three, or maybe one of his assistants was a track coach. I don't know that, but was there? What I'm getting at is, was there an off-season program? Was football carried through in the off season?
Can I ask you a quick question about that? So, just so I have idea, how many kids do you think graduated from Chaney around that time? Just a best kind of guess, because the city was way bigger. Maybe not in the 20s or 30s. I don't know, but I guess what do you think the? Are we talking 500 kids in a class, 300?
Well, I don't think if the football team numbers were evident of the amount of kids in the school, okay, maybe this will shed some light on it. My graduating class in 1970 had 499 kids. Okay. When Chaney first opened, they were, and I'm talking about Chaney on 731 South Hazelwood.
Yeah.
Okay, what they considered the new Chaney.
Yeah.
As opposed to what West being torn down now was the original Chaney. And there was an expansion period in the 60s where they actually had to add on to the building. I mean,
okay.
The old building there was they actually had to go in shifts. They had to go in to accommodate all the kids.
At Chaney High School, the former West, or the former Chaney, right?
I'm talking about the Chaney that,
Currently,
when we
had to go in shifts.
had to go in shifts.
Wow.
You had to you went in, either attended a morning shift that I believe started at like 7 or 7:30,
Okay.
and went to noon or maybe to the lunchtime period,
Yeah.
so that I don't know how the cafeteria navigated that. But then a new shift came in midday. Okay.
Wow.
And they were using the old gym lobby. They were putting partitions up and using that gym lobby as a classroom just to accommodate kids. So in looking at pictures, like when my dad played in the 20s, in 1929 was his senior year. Their team picture, maybe there was 20 guys.
So you're assuming it might have been a little bit smaller.
Yes.
Neighborhood, and as the steel mills start really blossoming,
Correct.
And I just wonder, because you have so few guys, and particularly at that time, most coaches were guys, men, kind of involved. I was just wondering if that's because they just did everything, or there really wasn't a huge population to service.
I'm thinking a combination of the two.
Okay.
Yeah. And as I was starting to say, in getting into the program factor, I'm pretty sure when they played their last game, obviously there was no playoffs or anything. So when their last game was played, it was probably, we'll see on the court. I expect you guys that most of you guys are going to play basketball. Speaking from my dad, he played basketball and then he ran track. Okay. And I would think that was pretty much the norm. I'm sure there were some guys that were football only, but certainly not like specialized like it is today.
Right.
Or even, during Red's tenure or Ed's tenure. So, like I said, guys, as far as program was concerned, so what did they do to keep fit? Knowing what Chess did his last year as a teacher was my 9th grade year, and he was at West. He was big into boxing, and there were a lot of gymnastics apparatus. There was a balance beam, trampoline, Indian clubs, and a horse, and different things. So, I'm guessing gym classes probably dabbled in all that. And I know that he was a big proponent of boxing. I know.
Yeah.
Because I mentioned he used to say when he was the director at Bortz, tell your father I'm going to box his ears off. And I know when I was a student there that a lot of times guys that had issues with each other, he'd have them put the boxing gloves on and go at it up in that loft area. And I don't know if it was still there. Was that operational when you were there? That loft area that overlooked the gym?
So
because it was starting to go. I mean, it was starting to. The floor was starting to.
You got to help me out on this. So, like, I was talking to Pope last week, and because you mentioned about where the pictures would have been, and I was trying to get the logistics of where everything was. So, the gym. When you say the gym, are you talking about the one like on that parking lot.
I'm talking about what they referred to as like the field house. That's the one that jutted out to towards Connecticut.
Okay.
The old gym was internal. Was like in that was like the old fashioned gym. But then they added on to the building.
So when you're talking about Pope's, you ever been down there where Pope's office was?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
Okay, like you got the stands going up the side. Is that the one you're talking about? That's the new gym, or that's the old?
That's the new gym.
Okay, so the original was, yes, it was tucked in the circle.
Where the elementary school is.
Yes. Boy, that's really stretched my memory. I remember going in there, because I think Borio worked in there at one point, and I don't remember there being any sort of loft. I can't remember. Where would that have been in that gym?
Okay. Now, where the phys ed office was,
Yeah.
okay, there were entrances that went up steps on both sides,
Yeah, no, you got me on
okay?
that. Yeah.
And then it went down because there were locker rooms underneath.
No, I have no
And-
recollection of that.
Yeah, and that's referred to as the new gym.
Yes.
But like I said, when I went there, that would have been 67, 66. As a ninth grader, that was starting to really, I mean, that was old. That building was old. I mean, the building was 26 was when it went up.
Yeah, I mean, I remember teaching there, and at one point we were the largest elementary school in the state. We had like 1,000 some kids. It was huge, and at that point, it was deteriorating.
Yeah, right.
Bad.
Well, in this field house, the gym area, okay, as you came in, and they built it as the state-of-the-art gymnasium.
Sure. Yeah.
For the time
Right.
that it was built. I mean, and it was really a nice gym. I mean, it was a nice gym, but overlooking the gym, which would have been the internal part of it, as opposed to the wall that was parallel to Connecticut, there was a loft area. Okay, I mean, that was probably, well, it was as wide as the gym, and it probably was maybe 20 yards
Yeah.
out.
No, I don't. That was. No, I don't remember any of that. I do remember there was, in the auditorium, they had a loft, like that second
Like a
section.
balcony.
Yeah, balcony. But
Yeah.
so okay.
No, this was an area that there was a springboard, there was parallel bars, a horse, pegboard, all kind of gymnastic equipment, and actually, when we were done with football as a ninth grader at West, Dick Magni was the coach, and he set up a bench and whatnot, and we used to lift there, up there, because we weren't privy to go up to Chaney yet. Even though that's where we were headed. Now, it wasn't like Red ignored us. I mean, Red came down and talked to us and invited us up and whatnot. But as far as their workouts, we weren't privy to.
Just wasn't part of the program.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which leads us to our topic. So, like I said, the program at that time was participate in the other sports. Okay, that's what most guys were doing in the off season, and that was the norm, I would say. And then when Red took over, and he was in the new building, I'm not saying that was a time when it was pretty much the same, you know, go out for basketball, go out for, you know, Red wanted to build a football program, and I'm not saying he was discouraging anybody from going out for basketball. His athletes, his attitude that I found as a player for him was always, you know, if you can play basketball, go and play. If you could run track, do that. You know, he was a basketball official and he was a track official. You know, so he encouraged the guys that could to do that, but he offered something new. I think he offered a program to those guys that didn't have an avenue in basketball or track. There was no baseball at the time. And he brought, and he was groundbreaking on this. He brought, you know, weight training in and conditioning. And, you know, I can tell you that the off-season, I was one of the guys that didn't play basketball or didn't run track, okay? And a lot of the guys that I hung with, you know, they were either involved in basketball, involved in track, or involved in both, you know? But so I went through the weights and the conditioning. And it was, when the season ended, you're going right back into lifting 3 days a week and conditioning 2 days a week. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much what we did leading into the summer. If I can remember the lifting part, we had a weight room that was a very small room, okay? There was an Olympic bar in it, some free weights on a regular bar, and some dumbbells and a man-making machine. And it was small, and you'd crowd 60 guys in there, and the heaters would be blasting, mm-hmm. and the water would be running down the mirrors. And I mean, you had to crack the door and suck air to breathe. I mean, it was, and you know, and there was no, well, this is, you get this many sets of this, and this. It was lift, you know, go in there and I expect you to work. And he had a sign that said door to 9 and 0. Now, he would test you. And the big lifts were bench and press. Mm-hmm. Okay. And he wanted you benching as much as you can, and he wanted you pressing at least your body weight.
So what was a good bench during that time?
When I was in high school, I was 170 pounds, right around there. And I could, my max was like 275. Now that was really good.
Right.
But you know, guys that I learned how to lift with, like Jim Raffiti, you know, I mean, he was 180 pounds, and he probably, well, I know he was 300 plus, you know, on the bench. So, but that gives you an idea what the older heads were lifting, mm-hmm. you know. So
it's relatively. I mean, it's not, you know, a good lift is still a good lift now for a high school kid. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So, like I said, and I think that I talked about going right into that and it being a 5-day-a-week thing. I think it was more lifting 3 days a week because basketball was going on in the gym. So there wasn't a lot of conditioning that you can do because we weren't coming back at night. And you couldn't, and we weren't running the halls or anything at that time.
Yeah.
So we had to work around that. So there was the conditioning probably didn't start. The conditioning phase of the program didn't start until basketball was over.
Okay.
And then, with Red being a track official, a lot of times the older heads would just run the conditioning part. And
So there wouldn't be any coaches necessarily?
yeah, well, sometimes there would and sometimes there wouldn't be. Yeah.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah, it is.
Isn't it crazy? Just some of the, I mean, and not that it's bad. I guess all these things happen and you kind of evolve. But
I know there's alumni out here that can appreciate that. We'd have the run of the gym. Okay, Red would throw you the keys sometimes and say, "Hey, you guys are just lock up when you leave."
I mean, you can't even get into stuff without signing things in triplicate anymore.
There was an incline sit-up board. Okay, Now think about this. There was an incline sit-up board that had a leather strap on the end of it that you'd hook your feet up in it and do sit-ups. Red would do them all day. I mean, he had that, and it sat off the side in the gym. Okay, we would put it on the foul line, okay, or just past the foul line, and get a running start and use it as a ramp and dunk, and hang on the rim and everything. That was a big deal. We would play like guarded tackle football games in the gym, nobody around.
Oh my God.
Nobody around. I mean, it was different, certainly, but yeah. And that, to add to that conditioning piece, during basketball season. So, how did you maintain your conditioning aside from the strength training? Well, Red would sign you out of study hall. Okay, come on down. You could relax, whatever. But I expect you at least to lead one gym class. Mm-hmm. So you had to, and the gym class was pretty simple. It was 20 laps around the gym. Okay, and Red would sit there with his bar and do his waist twists on the corner, and you'd have to count every time you come past them, 1, 2, till you got to 20, and then full calisthenics, frog hops, the whole 9 yards. Okay, and you, as one of his football guys, would lead the class. So, and then there'd be maybe 10 minutes at the end of the period. You'd play jungle ball. I mean, it was just full. And if you weren't dressed, if you were a gym kid and you weren't dressed, it was automatic. Red, take your shoes off, because no one wore tennis shoes to school then. You mean take your shoes off and just keep jogging the whole period on the outside.
So how long were your classes? Like 45, 50 minutes probably?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So it was a workout basically.
Oh, yeah.
Was it every day?
Every day, yeah.
And was it like a semester or a year long, or kind of like it is now, a quarter?
Well, what was gym?
Yeah. So would you have it all year? Would you have it a semester?
Well, whatever you had study hall.
I mean,
he signed you off.
So if I'm a kid going through the class, I'm a freshman, sophomore.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's like now.
Okay. So, you're getting a workout, and then you get a couple minutes after to kind of, play, or, you get some free time. Isn't it funny that, like, and I don't want to segue, but it's funny. Like now in gym class, we have to almost teach kids how to play,
Oh yeah,
and almost teach kids how to have some sort of athleticism.
yeah.
Instead, before like everybody kind of did because there's nothing else to do, and
Right.
you work out.
And there were the kids like when I taught phys ed. I mean that didn't refuse to dress.
Right.
And and what it really was a deterrent because that kid would have to get all sweated up. I mean, because he's running the entire 45 minutes, okay, in his school clothes.
Did you guys shower at that time?
Absolutely, had automatic. You had to get in the shower.
When you were teaching, did you make kids shower or was it optional?
When I was teaching when I started teaching junior high, I actually, and I told them, I said, listen, I know there might have been a modesty issue and whatnot, and kids were in their developmental stages,
sure. Right.
And
right.
I was sympathetic to that, and I said, okay, if you want to wear bathing suit, you want to wear, but you need to go in there and rinse off, okay?
Yeah.
You need, and I would stand in the.
Don't even say it.
I would stand in the rinse off in the drain area where in between the two showers, and with my grade book and give them a hygiene grade. Which probably would get me fired today.
Oh, yeah, I would say that's probably not.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Oh my God.
So it was quite different, and
yeah. Go ahead.
So that's it. Like I said, and when basketball finished, then we would start in the gym, okay? And we would do, I mean, quite a bit of conditioning. I mean, and he would do some gaming, we'd do shuttle and we'd do wheelbarrow and we'd do leapfrog and a number of things that we did. I mean, a number of things that were really, that could be labeled plyometric type activities, and but everything was started with 20 minutes of jog, stride, sprint, 30 jog, 20 stride, and 10-second sprint in the gym. And you're talking about 60 guys, going, and then Red would add a little novelty to it and put hurdles up halfway on each side of the gym so that and he'd be up your butt on that 10-second sprint, especially, get it, and you'd have to come on a hurdle, and you'd have to just.
That's the precursor to like HIIT training, the high intensity.
Oh
training.
yeah, absolutely.
A little different, but I mean the same concept.
Yeah, and then like I said, we would do that until we'd get a week, like the last week of the school year, we wouldn't have anything. Okay, that was our downtime, because once and there was no team activities or anything, any team building or that type of thing, but that was all done through the lifting and conditioning. Okay. And then, like I said, we get that week off, and then when summer break would start in the beginning of June, we'd go in the mornings down at Rock Ridge, and Red would sit on the hill, and there was it was a non-contact period then. And he would sit on the side of the hill, and we'd time up and mostly just time up. He you knew the offense, and he'd have the older kids kind of run it, but we'd meet every day. and he expected you to be there. I mean, it was like we used to say, voluntarily mandatory.
Right, right.
And that went through until July, and then July started the conditioning part of it. Lifting didn't come back into the building. Okay, when summer hit, lifting was done on your own. Guys would gather at various people's houses and get their lifting in then. But you'd have to. He would expect you to maintain. So it wasn't like, you know what, if you lift, fine. If you don't, that's okay. No, he expected you to be game ready, and he expected you to be getting that lifting in on your own. And we did. I mean, there were, you know, like I mentioned, Jim McFee. We'd gather at his house. He had a bunch of weights, and we'd get our workout there. And then when that conditioning started, it was in the evenings. It was at 6 o'clock, and you were eating 10, 15 salt tablets before those workouts, because that was the rule of the day. It would start with a 2-mile run for time, and you better make the time. And if after the 2-mile run, you'd break backs on one side, linemen on the other, and it would be the same. 60-yard agility, okay, full range agility, from backward run to karaoke to, like I said, the crab stuff and all that. All the agilities, and then 340s, 360s, 300s, and end with a 220 through the gate to the upper field. And then you'd play Roger Dodger. And that led into doubles.
What was Roger Dodger?
Roger Dodger was, you know, like a gauntlet of guys. I shouldn't say gauntlet, that's not the right term. But like there was somebody every 10 yards, and there was a narrow, maybe hash mark to hash mark area, 17 yards. And the ball carrier had to juke, jive, whatever to get past. And it was just touch, you know. I mean, there was...
It wasn't like the brick wall where they're trying to hit you and
No.
and take you out.